Did you see the 2023 roadmap for the Towers events that are going to be held this year? Hello and welcome back to Cryptid Theory. My name is Turmentic, and today we just got the Towers roadmap for 2023 today. We got 7 tower events that are actually going to be held throughout the entirety of this year. Super exciting. This is one of the biggest things that people have been anticipating. So let's just jump right in and start going over what we know. So the first event is actually going to be in March, and it's going to be at the Loveland Festival in Mason, Ohio. It is the water tower, Tower Agua Azul. It's the only one that we actually have a name for from the comic. Really excited actually about the Loveland Festival. Next one we have is in April. We don't exactly know where it's going to be. It's going to be tied to the native release. Now, what's really cool actually about this tower event right here is that this is going to be the location, I believe, of the Earth Tower, and I'll get into a little bit of what I mean as I go through the entirety of this list. I'm not completely convinced that these are the permanent locations for these towers, and like I said, I'll go into that in just a little bit. But I'm really excited about the native release event because it's going to be the Earth Tower event. Now, the next one is going to be in May, and it's going to be the Hodag Festival in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, and that is the Forest Tower. The next one is Flame, and we don't entirely know where that one is. It's just a question mark. That is going to be held in June. I still believe that the Flame Aura Tower is going to be in Hawaii. The entire island is made on top of fire in essence, if you think of it, because it's one big volcano. So that's just in my heart of hearts. I still feel like the Flame Tower is going to be in Hawaii. That event is going to be in June. Now, in July, they actually have an event for Lightning that's going to be in Kansas City at the Collecticon in Kansas City, Missouri. So that's going to be interesting. The next one would be August in Long Beach, California, and that's going to be a Spirit Tower event. Then we have the Mothman Festival, with Dark Tower being the one for Mothman Festival. That's going to, of course, be in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And this all culminates to the final big event of 2023, Caster's Cup, which will be held in theory in New York Comic Con. Not entirely sure how that will actually work. We'll get more details on that, whether you have to buy a ticket for the con, if you can get in, things like that. We don't know any details, so all of that is still up in the air, but it's really exciting that the big event of the year, the last big tournament, Caster's Cup 2023, is going to be held at New York Comic Con. Now, technically, there are 4 towers that they did not talk about. 5 if you actually believe there to be a Rainbow Tower. The first one would, of course, be Cosmic. We already know that's going to be in Roswell. They also didn't talk about Frost, Light, or the Neutral Roaming Tower, which is interesting because the Neutral Roaming Tower potentially might be a pop-up tower, if you will, at other cons and festivals that they go to that was not on this roadmap. Now, going back to what I was saying before about these not being the permanent locations of these towers, that is my speculation, it is my belief. Just because I know that they had hinted around actually having a tower in Florida, most likely the Lightning Tower, just because of per capita of lightning strikes per mile. Florida takes the cake for that. We already know that Spirit technically should be in Salem. Again, Cosmic wasn't even on the list. We believe that to be in Roswell. I believe these are tower events. Yes, this is the first season of the tower events, but I don't think it's actually the towers themselves. The physical locations are going to be built in time for these events, so that might be why these events are not the permanent locations. Now, that could change as well too. We're not entirely sure. It does follow some of the lore, like I said, from the comic, especially with Ohio being I'm so in love with Ohio actually being the home of the water tower, because that is directly from the comics. Dayton, Ohio, which is very close to Cincinnati, close to Loveland. It makes sense that it actually could be there. So I'm really excited actually about that. Saying that though, like I said, I don't believe these are the permanent locations. I do think that the towers are going to take a year, if not longer, to physically build those locations, to get them themed and everything like that as well too. So we could be potentially looking at permanent locations maybe in 2024, especially with the inclusion of the other 3, potentially 4 other towers that were not listed on this list as well. Now, what's interesting is that we actually do have mascots for each of the towers. Cosmic, of course, is Flatwoods Monster. We also got a tease that we believe that the Spirit mascot for the Spirit Tower is Walking Sam. Going through the rest of the list, Water Some people could say that the mascot would be Frogman. It also could be Chessie. All of the mascots, in essence, pretty much seem to have come from Cryptid Nation 1, the base set. So the two big ones I would say would be Frogman or Chessie for water. The mascot for Earth, we know through teases, is Sinkhole Sam, which is really exciting. Forest, could be one of two in my opinion. The original artwork that they showed for the rendering of the Forest Tower looks like it had a Bigfoot in it, but with the tower event of Forest being held at the Hodag Festival, Hodag as well could be that mascot for the Forest Tower. We'll just have to wait and actually see. Flame, I'm honestly still going to say I think Flame is going to be Pisawbird. It could also be Gassy, that is true, but I think Pisawbird definitely would be the mascot for the Flame Tower. Moving to Lightning, of course, the first one that comes to mind is Quetzalcoatlus. It makes perfect sense to me that should be the beastie mascot for the Lightning Tower. Now, Dark, I'm honestly on the fence about. The obvious choice, of course, would be Mothman, especially with the Dark Tower event taking place in Point Pleasant. But what about if it's actually the Manchek Swamp Priestess? We've seen her pop up actually in a couple different sets, and a couple different artworks, a common theme throughout all of the sets that we've seen so far. She is from Cryptid Nation 1 as well too. She was one of the theme decks. So I'm going to throw her out there as potentially being the Dark Beastie mascot for that tower. Now let's get into some specifics about the prizes and things like that you can expect from these tower events. Now each of these tower events will have a prize pool of $50,000, and that's a pretty good chunk of change. And it all culminates with Caster's Cup in New York Comic Con having a prize pool of $1.25 million. So MetaZoo's not playing around when they actually have these competitive events. I'm really excited to see what this does, not just for MetaZoo, but also for other TCGs, and really spurs them into putting more into their competitive play, especially since we are getting way past COVID and things are completely opening up and other things like that. So these prize pools will definitely entice some of the best players, not just in MetaZoo, I think, but also in other TCGs to actually come out and try to compete. Now, it was rumored when they first started talking about the towers that the top couple placers, I'd say maybe 1 through 3, 1 through 2, would potentially get an automatic entrance into Caster's Cup, like maybe the top 64, top 32, something like that. No details, that's all speculation here at this point, but it'd be interesting also just to see if not only do you get crowned a headcaster for that tower, but if you also get invited to, like I said, the top 64, top 32 of Caster's Cup when they actually have that at New York Comic Con. The announcement also said there'd be exclusive merch at these tower events, talking about pins, plushies, jerseys. I'm speculating that they'll actually have other things like event stamped cards similar to Caster's Cup, playmats just like Caster's Cup, lanyards, probably hats, some other sort of apparel like t-shirts or maybe a hoodie or something of that. Sleeves even, it'd be really cool to actually have an event exclusive sleeve potentially. So I'm really excited. I do think that the mascot for the towers is probably going to be the plush. So for example, if the mascot for the water tower at Loveland Festival is going to actually be Frogman, we may expect to actually see a Frogman plush, which we have actually seen teases of them over the last year as well too in the Discord, so it would make sense that they're actually using those plushies that we've seen teases as some of these not only prize support but also things that you can purchase at these events. Now here's the big thing everybody wants to know: how do you qualify for one of these tower events? So the only thing we actually have to go off of right now is that you have to sign up for the MetaZoo Play Network. I'll leave a description here in the description of the video, but you have to be signed up for the MPN, and you also have to attend an LGS sanctioned MetaZoo event. That doesn't mean it has to be a metal event, it just has to be a sanctioned event through the MPN that MetaZoo has said, okay, cool, that is an actual real event. There is no idea on if you have to enter multiple tournaments from LGSs in order to go to different towers. I know that originally the idea was that the towers would be regionally locked, so you'd have to go to an LGS that was close to that tower. I don't think that's how it's going to operate this year. I think that as long as you actually compete in one MetaZoo sanctioned event from an LGS, it will operate very similar to how Caster's Cup last year operated, where you had to, in essence, go to one event. Once you did that one event, you were fine to do Caster's Cup. I think that's how it's going to be for these tower events as well. That's pretty awesome because it encourages people to go to their LGSs and actually play games, play in these tournaments, not only just accrue the MetaZoo Point Network points, but actually also get entrance into these tower events, because I believe the only way you're going to be able to go to Caster's Cup is if maybe, this is speculative now, this isn't actually confirmed, but I'm thinking that the only way to get to Caster's Cup is going to be to compete in one of these tower events. And in order to compete in one of the tower events, you have to compete at an LGS sanctioned tournament, which is really brilliant, because again, in my eyes, that is MetaZoo lifting up the LGSs. It is MetaZoo trying to get people to support their local game stores. Something else that was not mentioned when they were talking about the prize support and other things that they would have at the festivals was product, booster boxes, release decks, theme decks, things like that, which again, originally when they made the tower announcement, they were talking about they wouldn't have any of that stuff at the physical tower locations because they wanted you to support your local game store. They would have exclusive merch that you could only find at the tower, but they didn't want people buying booster boxes from them at the towers and stuff like that. So if they keep that idea, I fully support it, because like I said, it's MetaZoo literally lifting up the LGSs, trying to support them, but at the same time build on top of that in order to get more people involved and excited about MetaZoo play. Now, saying that, it is my theory though that going into 2024 next year, they will make it the requirement where you have to compete at an LGS within the vicinity of that tower. I do think that once the towers are regionally locked and decided on, they start building the actual physical locations. I do think they are going to start moving towards that format, but that potentially is going to be 2024, maybe even 2025. It just depends on how big the competitive scene of MetaZoo blows up over the next 12 to 36 months. So pretty much to recap, we have 7 tower events that are going to be taking place over the course of the next year, pretty much starting from March all the way up through to Caster's Cup, I believe, in October in New York Comic Con. I don't fully think these are the permanent locations of the towers, just because of things that have been said before, other teases, stuff like that. There could be a couple that are permanently though. Like I will say that Forest in Rhinelander, Wisconsin does kind of make sense, to be honest with you. So I could see that being the permanent Forest location. But Spirit, for example, the Spirit Tower event being in Long Beach, California, I feel like we already know that Spirit's going to be Salem, Massachusetts, so I don't believe that's going to be the permanent tower location for that one, for example. Now, I did say that it is my belief that the Flame Aura Tower is going to be in Hawaii. That's just in my heart of hearts. I don't know why. I just really feel like it's going to be. It just makes perfect sense in my eyes. And I do believe, though, that wherever the native release event takes place, where that tower location, that tower event takes place, that is going to be the actual physical location of the Earth Tower. Like, that's just, I have a strong feeling, just like with Seance being in Salem and UFO being in Roswell, wherever that a release event takes place, that is where that permanent tower will be located. But my name is Turmentic. Thanks so much for taking a minute and actually checking this out, going through the recap of what we know so far regarding towers and MetaZoo competitive play. As we get more information, more teases, things like that, I'll definitely be expanding on this. This is a very interesting thing. Like, towers, they're very interesting to me because they're directly from the comic. They directly have a big tie to the storyline and the lore of the comic, and you know me, I'm in love with the lore. So thanks again, like I said, for checking this out. I hope it was very informative. If you have any questions or if you have anything to add, please leave them down below in the comment section. And until the next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.